The crowd fell silent as Rose Armstrong's wagon rolled into St. Louis, Missouri in the sweltering summer of 1874, her pale face streaked with dust and determination, as she surveyed the bustling frontier town that would become her reluctant sanctuary. The journey from Boston had taken everything from her energy, her family fortune, and nearly her spirit, but the advertisement for a schoolteacher position had promised a fresh start, something she desperately needed after the doctor's devastating diagnosis back east. St. Louis wasn't the untamed wilderness Rose had imagined during the long journey west. Though certainly rougher than Boston, the town boasted proper buildings, thriving businesses, and signs of civilization that surprised her. The Mississippi River hummed with steamboat activity, while the streets teemed with a diverse mix of people: merchants, laborers, well-dressed ladies, and the occasional cowboy passing through. "Whoa there," called the wagon driver as he pulled to a stop before a modest boarding house on Chestnut Street. "Here's your stop, Miss Armstrong, Mrs. Beckett's boarding house for ladies of refinement." Rose glanced at the two-story clapboard building with its neat shutters and well-kept garden. "Thank you, sir. Would you mind helping with my trunk?" As the driver unloaded her meager possessions, Rose noticed a commotion down the street. A crowd had gathered outside the sheriff's office, their voices raised in a mixture of anger and curiosity. "What's happening there?" she asked the driver. He spat tobacco juice and shrugged. "Probably caught that rustler who's been hitting the ranches north of town. Rumor has it he's killed 3 men. Rose shuddered, suddenly reminded that despite the veneer of civilization, she was indeed in the West now, where justice could be swift and harsh. Mrs. Beckett emerged from the boarding house, a plump woman in her 50s with kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. "You must be our new schoolteacher. Welcome to St. Louis, my dear. I've prepared our best room for you." After settling into her simple but clean room, Rose washed away the travel dust and changed into a fresh dress. Her new position at the town school wouldn't begin for 3 days, giving her time to acquaint herself with St. Louis. Despite her exhaustion, curiosity pulled her outside again. The town's main street offered an intriguing array of establishments: a general store, a dressmaker's shop, 2 saloons, a bank, and a modest church. Rose paused outside the general store, examining the window display of canned goods and dry goods. "You're new to town," came a deep voice from behind her. Rose turned to find herself face to face with a tall man with broad shoulders and intelligent blue eyes. He wore a star-shaped badge on his vest. "The sheriff." "Yes," she replied, extending her hand. "Rose Armstrong." "I'm to be the new schoolteacher." "Sheriff Thomas Wilson," he replied, tipping his hat. "Welcome to St. Louis. How was your journey?" "Long but uneventful, thankfully." The sheriff nodded. "Good to hear. Town's been waiting for a proper teacher since Miss Holliday left to get married last spring. The children need education, especially out here." Rose was about to respond when shouts erupted from down the street. A man on horseback came galloping toward them, his face panicked. "Sheriff. There's trouble at the Alderson ranch. Rustlers hit again and they've taken Ryan hostage." The sheriff's face hardened. "Damn it all. Excuse me, Miss Armstrong, duty calls." He turned to the messenger. "Round up Deputy Miller and meet me at the livery in 5 minutes." As the sheriff rushed away, Rose couldn't help but wonder who Ryan was and if he would be safe. The West was proving to be as dangerous as the dime novels suggested, and she'd only been in town for hours. The next morning, Rose explored more of her new home. The school building sat near the edge of town, a simple one-room structure with rows of desks, a small blackboard, and shelves of well-worn books. As she examined the supplies, the door creaked open. "So you're the Boston lady come to teach our youngsters." The man who entered removed his hat, revealing sun-streaked brown hair that fell carelessly around a tanned, handsome face. His clothing marked him as a rancher: sturdy trousers, worn boots, and a shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal muscular forearms. "Ryan Alderson," he said, extending a calloused hand. Sorry if I startled you. Rose felt a flutter of recognition. The Ryan Alderson who was taken hostage yesterday, he chuckled, revealing a dimple in his right cheek. News travels fast. Yes, madam, though the hostage part was greatly exaggerated, just a misunderstanding with some confused cattle that wandered onto my property. I'm Rose Armstrong, she replied, taking his hand briefly. I was concerned when I heard about your situation. It takes more than a couple of confused rustlers to keep me down, Ryan said with a grin. I own the Triple Ranch about 5 miles north of town, came by to see if the new teacher needed any help getting the schoolhouse ready. Rose glanced around at the dusty surfaces and cobwebbed corners. That's kind of you, Mr. Alderson. I was just assessing what needs to be done. For the next 2 hours, they worked side by side, Ryan replacing a broken window pane and fixing wobbly desks while Rose organized books and cleaned surfaces. As they worked, they talked. She learned he'd come west from Pennsylvania 10 years earlier with nothing but determination and had built his ranch from scratch. He learned she had taught in Boston for 5 years before deciding to venture west. What she didn't tell him was why she'd really left Boston, the lingering illness that had nearly claimed her life last winter. The doctor's solemn pronouncement that her weakened body would never survive childbirth. At 28, she'd accepted that some dreams weren't meant to be, but that didn't make the reality any less painful. You should come out to the ranch sometime, Ryan said as they finished. Sunday dinners are quite the affair. My foreman's wife, Martha, makes the best apple pie this side of the Mississippi. That's very kind, but I wouldn't want to impose. Nonsense. Besides, several of your future students live at nearby ranches. Good for you to meet the families. Before Rose could respond, the door swung open again, revealing a young woman in an elegant dress. There you are, Ryan, she exclaimed, her pretty face lighting up. I've been looking all over town for you. Olivia, Ryan said, sounding slightly uncomfortable. I was just helping Miss Armstrong prepare the schoolhouse. Miss Armstrong, is it? Olivia extended a gloved hand. Olivia Peterson. My father owns the bank. Ryan and I have known each other since he arrived in St. Louis. Her tone conveyed that their relationship was more than casual acquaintance. Pleased to meet you, Rose replied, suddenly aware of her dusty appearance next to Olivia's immaculate attire. Ryan, don't forget you promised to escort me to the Founders' Day dance next weekend, Olivia said, linking her arm through his. I haven't forgotten, he said, though his smile seemed forced after they left. Rose felt a curious disappointment. Of course a man like Ryan Alderson would have romantic attachments in town. She chided herself for even noticing. She'd come to St. Louis to teach, not to pursue impossible dreams of love and family. The first day of school arrived, bringing 18 students ranging from 6 to 16 years of age. Rose quickly established order and routine, impressed by the children's eagerness to learn despite their varying educational backgrounds. Among her students were the Milner twins, whose father worked for Ryan at the Triple Ranch. Mr. Alderson says you're the smartest lady he's ever met. 8-year-old Emma Milner announced during lunch break. He talked about you all through Sunday dinner. Rose felt her cheeks warm. Mr. Alderson was very helpful with the schoolhouse repairs. Pa says Mr. Alderson needs a wife, Emma's brother Ethan added matter-of-factly, says the ranch is too big for a man alone. That's quite enough, Ethan, Rose said firmly. Let's practice our multiplication tables. 2 weeks into her teaching position, disaster struck. Rose awakened in the night to shouts of fire and the acrid smell of smoke. Mrs. Beckett burst into her room, face pale with fear. The boarding house next door is ablaze. We must evacuate immediately. Rose grabbed her shawl and a small box containing her mother's locket, the only family heirloom she possessed, and rushed outside with the other boarders. The night air was thick with smoke as townspeople formed a bucket brigade from the town well to the burning building. The winds shifting. Someone shouted, Mrs. Beckett's will be next. Horror filled Rose as she realized all her possessions, her clothes, books, teaching materials might soon be consumed by flames. She joined the bucket brigade, passing water alongside shopkeepers, ranchers, and saloon girls, all working together against the common enemy. "Miss Armstrong," Ryan's voice cut through the chaos. He appeared beside her, face smudged with soot. "You shouldn't be out here." "The smoke, I'm fine," she insisted, though her lungs burned with each breath. Ryan shook his head and took the bucket from her hands. "Please go to the church. They're gathering folks there." Before she could argue, a violent coughing fit doubled her over. The smoke was triggering memories of her illness, the weakness returning to her limbs. Ryan's strong arm encircled her waist, supporting her. "Martha," he called to a middle-aged woman nearby, "please take Miss Armstrong to safety." The next thing Rose knew, she was being guided away from the fire. She glanced back to see Ryan climbing a ladder to the roof of Mrs. Beckett's boarding house, bucket in hand. The fire was eventually contained, but not before it had consumed the neighboring boarding house and damaged the east wing of Mrs. Beckett's. Rose's room, thankfully, was in the undamaged section, though smoke had permeated everything she owned. As dawn broke, Ryan found her sitting on a bench outside the church, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Your things?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Mostly intact, though everything smells of smoke," she replied. "How did it start?" "Oil lamp tipped over," Ryan said grimly. "The Simmons boy was trying to read after bedtime. His parents didn't make it out." Rose closed her eyes, grief washing over her for the family and the now orphaned child. "What will happen to him?" "Don't know yet. Sheriff's wiring relatives back east." Ryan studied her pale face. "You don't look well, Miss Armstrong. Just the smoke," she said dismissively. "You should see Doc Peterson. Smoke inhalation can be dangerous." "I'm fine, truly." Ryan's blue eyes narrowed skeptically, but he didn't press. Instead, he said, "Mrs. Beckett's will need repairs. You'll need somewhere to stay in the meantime." "The church has offered space. You'll stay at my ranch," he said decisively. "I've already spoken with Mrs. Beckett. Martha has prepared a room for you." "Mr. Alderson, I couldn't possibly—" "It's settled," he interrupted. "The Milner children will be thrilled to have their teacher nearby, and it's only temporary." 3 days later, Rose found herself installed in a comfortable bedroom at the Triple Ranch. The sprawling ranch house was unexpectedly refined, with polished wood floors, quality furniture, and walls adorned with paintings and bookshelves. "My mother was particular about creating a proper home," Ryan explained when he caught her admiring a landscape painting. "Even on the frontier, she insisted on certain standards." "Your parents are no longer living?" Rose asked. A shadow crossed Ryan's face. "They followed me west 5 years ago. Cholera took them both the first winter." "I'm sorry," Rose said softly. "I lost my parents as well, father to the war, mother to influenza." Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of shared loss, of understanding what it meant to forge ahead alone. Life at the Triple settled into a pleasant routine. Each morning, Ryan would drive Rose to the schoolhouse in his buggy, and each afternoon, he or one of his ranch hands would collect her. Evenings were spent sharing meals with Ryan, Martha, and her husband Frank, often followed by conversation or reading by the fire. Rose found herself drawn to the rancher in a way that both thrilled and terrified her. His intelligence matched his physical strength. He discussed books and current events with thoughtful insight. His kindness extended beyond his treatment of her to how he managed his ranch hands and cattle firm but fair, respectful of both man and beast. One evening, a month into her stay, Rose sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the distant mountains gold and crimson. Ryan joined her, offering a cup of coffee. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, his voice soft with appreciation. "Never tire of these Montana sunsets." "It's magnificent," she agreed. "So different from Boston. Do you miss it?" "The city," Rose considered the question. "I miss certain aspects, the libraries, the concerts. But there's something about the openness here, the sense of possibility." Ryan nodded, studying her profile in the fading light. Why did you really come west, Rose? The use of her first name sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the evening chill. To teach, she said automatically. There are schools in Boston, Rose sighed, knowing he deserved some truth. I needed a fresh start after my illness last year. His eyes sharpened with concern. Illness, pneumonia, it was, severe. The doctor suggested a drier climate might prevent a recurrence. It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie either. I'm glad you came, Ryan said simply. St. Louis needed a good teacher and he hesitated. I've enjoyed getting to know you. Rose felt her heart quicken. Mr. Alderson, Ryan, please, Ryan, what about Miss Peterson? I was under the impression that you two were courting. He looked genuinely surprised. Olivia, no, though not for lack of effort on her part. We're old friends, nothing more. The revelation should have pleased Rose, but instead it heightened her anxiety. If there was no attachment to Olivia, then the growing closeness between herself and Ryan was even more dangerous to her heart, if not to his. The next day, while Ryan was checking fence lines on the northern pasture, a visitor arrived at the ranch. Doc Peterson, Olivia's father and the town physician, had come to check on Rose's recovery from the smoke inhalation. Breathing sounds much improved, he said after his examination. But there's something else troubling you, isn't there, Miss Armstrong? Rose hesitated, then asked, Are you familiar with my medical history, doctor? Only what was in the letter from Dr. Harrison in Boston, severe pneumonia with complications. He recommended the drier climate of the West. Did he mention the other effects of my illness? Understanding dawned in the doctor's eyes. No, he didn't specify, but I've seen similar cases. The damage to your reproductive system, Rose nodded, tears filling her eyes. He said carrying a child would likely kill me, and even if I survived, conception would be nearly impossible. Doc Peterson patted her hand gently. Medical science is advancing every year, Miss Armstrong. But yes, in cases of severe respiratory illness that spreads to other systems, the prognosis for childbearing can be poor. I've accepted it, Rose said, though her voice betrayed her lingering grief. I've grown fond of Mr. Alderson, and he deserves to know the truth before feelings deepen, the doctor finished kindly. Yes, honesty is best in these matters. Ryan is a good man. He'll appreciate your forthright approach. The opportunity for that honesty came sooner than Rose expected. That evening, Ryan invited her for a walk along the creek that bordered the southern edge of his property. The autumn air was crisp, the setting sun gilding the cottonwood trees that lined the water. I've been thinking, Ryan said as they paused to watch a hawk circle overhead, about asking you to stay on at the ranch. Mrs. Beckett's will be repaired by next week, Rose reminded him. I know. That's not what I mean. He turned to face her, his expression uncharacteristically nervous. These past weeks with you here have been the happiest I've known since coming west. The house feels like a home again. Rose's heart pounded painfully. Ryan, I know it's sudden, he continued, and I'm not asking for an immediate answer, but I want you to consider becoming my wife. The words she'd simultaneously dreaded and longed to hear hung in the air between them. Rose felt tears welling in her eyes. There are things you don't know about me, she whispered. I know enough, he said, taking her hands in his. I know you're kind, intelligent, brave. I know you care deeply for your students and for this community. I know I've fallen in love with you, Rose Armstrong. A tear slipped down her cheek. You deserve a complete wife, someone who can give you children, a family. Understanding dawned in Ryan's eyes. Your illness. She nodded miserably. The doctor in Boston was quite clear. I cannot bear children, Ryan. The strain would likely kill me, and even conception is unlikely given the damage to my system. For a terrible moment, Ryan was silent, and Rose prepared herself for his withdrawal, for the inevitable end to this beautiful dream. Instead, he lifted her chin gently, forcing her to meet his gaze. Is that all? All, Rose repeated, confused. Isn't that enough? You need an heir for your ranch, a son to Ryan silenced her with a gentle finger against her lips. What I need is you. Children would be a blessing, yes, but they're not why I'm asking you to marry me. But your legacy can be built in many ways." His smile was tender as he wiped away her tears. "The ranch can pass to a worthy hand or be sold to benefit causes we believe in. We could take in orphans like the Simmons boy or others who need homes. There are many ways to create a family." Hope, fragile but persistent, bloomed in Rose's heart. "You truly mean that, with all my heart." He drew her closer. "Will you marry me, Rose? Will you make this house a home with me?" she whispered, tears still flowing. "I can't give you children." The cowboy replied, his voice steady and sure, "Then we'll fill this house with love instead." 6 weeks later, on a clear December morning, Rose Armstrong became Rose Alderson in a simple ceremony at the St. Louis church. The entire town turned out for the celebration, including Olivia Peterson, who had graciously accepted the situation and even helped organize the wedding breakfast. Their first year of marriage was a time of adjustment and deepening love. Rose continued teaching while also learning the business of running a ranch. Ryan expanded his operation, adding a small orchard and vegetable gardens to make the ranch more self-sufficient. Together, they turned the triple into not just a successful cattle operation but a true home. In the spring, they received word that the Simmons boy's eastern relatives had declined to take him in. Without hesitation, Ryan and Rose offered to become his guardians. 8-year-old William joined their household, bringing with him both the lingering grief of his loss and the resilience of childhood. "He's not a replacement for having our own," Rose said anxiously the night before William arrived. "I don't want him to ever feel that way." "He's a child who needs a home," Ryan replied, holding her close. "Just as we're a home that needs a child. It's as simple as that." William's adjustment wasn't always smooth. Nightmares of the fire plagued him, and he tested boundaries with stubborn determination. But Ryan's patience and Rose's gentle guidance gradually helped the boy feel secure in their love. By the following winter, William was thriving, excelling in school, helping with ranch chores, and filling the house with the energy only a child can bring. Rose watched Ryan teaching him to ride and mend fences with a heart so full, it sometimes felt it might burst. Their family grew again when a blizzard brought unexpected visitors. Ryan found a young, pregnant woman and her husband stranded in a broken wagon 5 miles from the ranch. He brought them home just as the woman went into labor. After a harrowing night with Rose and Martha assisting Doc Peterson, twin girls were born, but the mother hemorrhaged badly and died at dawn despite their desperate efforts to save her. The devastated father, himself weakened by pneumonia, followed his wife 2 weeks later, leaving the newborn girls orphaned. Rose and Ryan exchanged a single glance, no words needed. The twins, named Faith and Hope by their dying father, would stay. "Are you certain?" Doc Peterson asked when they formalized the adoption. 3 children is a significant responsibility, especially with 2 infants. "More than certain," Ryan replied, watching Rose rock one baby while William carefully held the other, his small face serious with the responsibility. "Our family just grew, that's all." The news spread quickly through St. Louis, and soon the Alderson home was flooded with gifts: handmade cradles from the carpenter, tiny dresses sewn by the Ladies' Aid Society, preserved fruits and vegetables to help through the winter. Even Olivia Peterson, now engaged to a lawyer from Helena, brought delicate baby blankets she had knitted herself. "You've created something special here," Sheriff Wilson remarked during a Sunday visit. "A family built on choice rather than obligation. It's a fine thing to see." By the twins' first birthday, the Alderson family had expanded yet again. 2 Lakota children, a brother and sister whose parents had died in a government relocation, came to live with them through an arrangement with a missionary who knew of the Aldersons' willingness to open their home. 10-year-old Joseph and 7-year-old Morning Star brought with them not only their grief but their culture and language, which Ryan and Rose encouraged them to maintain while also helping them adapt to their new circumstances. The integration wasn't without challenges both from within the family as the children adjusted to each other, and from some townspeople who disapproved of white ranchers raising native children. "People will talk," Rose said worriedly after an uncomfortable encounter at the general store. "Let them," Ryan replied. "Those children needed a home, we had one to give. The rest is just noise." Over the years, the Alderson Ranch became known throughout the territory not just for its quality cattle but for its unconventional family. Ryan expanded the house, adding bedrooms and a larger kitchen to accommodate their growing brood. Rose eventually hired an assistant teacher so she could divide her time between the school and the ranch. On their 5th anniversary, Ryan surprised Rose with a trip to Boston to visit her old friends and show the children the city of their mother's youth. The journey was long but filled with excitement as the 5 Alderson children experienced train travel, grand hotels, and the wonders of a major city for the first time. Standing on Boston Common, watching William and Joseph race each other while Morning Star taught the twins to make daisy chains, Rose felt Ryan's arms encircle her from behind. "Regrets?" he asked softly, his lips close to her ear. She turned in his arms to face him. "Not one. You've given me more than I ever dreamed possible. We've built it together," he corrected. "This family, this life." That night in their hotel room after the children were asleep, Rose presented Ryan with a letter that had arrived just before they left St. Louis. "What's this?" he asked, unfolding the paper. "A letter from Julia Simmons," Rose explained. "William's aunt in Philadelphia. She heard about our family from a friend who passed through St. Louis." Ryan scanned the letter, his expression growing concerned. "She wants to reclaim him, after 5 years." "Read the rest," Rose urged. As he continued reading, his expression changed from concern to surprise. "She's not asking for William back. She's asking if we would consider taking her daughter as well, William's cousin. The girl is 12 and having trouble at home following her father's death." Rose nodded. "Julia thinks being with William might help Rebecca adjust, and she feels our home might offer more stability than she can provide as a widowed seamstress." Ryan looked up from the letter, meeting his wife's eyes. 6 children. "If you think it's too many," he silenced her with a kiss, then rested his forehead against hers. "Our house has plenty of room and our hearts have even more. Write to Julia. Tell her Rebecca is welcome in our home for as long as she needs." 2 years later, as they celebrated Christmas with their now 7 children, a local boy orphaned by a mining accident had joined them the previous spring. Ryan found Rose standing by the window, watching snow fall gently on the expanded ranch house. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, handing her a cup of hot cider. "I was just thinking about our first conversation by this window," she replied, "when I told you I couldn't give you children." Ryan laughed softly, gesturing to the chaos of the living room where their brood was engaged in an enthusiastic game of charades. "I'd say you've proven that particular doctor wrong. Not biologically," she reminded him, "but in every way that matters." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Thank you for showing me that family isn't defined by blood but by love." "And this house is certainly full of that," he agreed, kissing her forehead. As midnight approached and the younger children were tucked into bed, Ryan led Rose to the porch where they had shared so many conversations over the years. Despite the cold, the night was clear, stars blazing overhead in the vast Montana sky. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small wrapped package. Rose opened it to find a locket similar to her mother's that had been lost in a creek during a family picnic the previous summer. "Open it," Ryan urged. Inside was not a photograph as she expected, but a tiny piece of paper with a single word written in Ryan's bold script. 7. 7, she questioned. 7 children who might never have had a home, he explained. 7 lives changed because you were brave enough to journey west, to tell me the truth about your fears, to open your heart to possibilities instead of limitations. Tears filled Rose's eyes. "Our family is my greatest joy, and it will continue to grow," Ryan promised. Not just with children who need us, but with grandchildren someday, with friends, with all the connections that make a life rich. As they stood together under the stars, Rose reflected on the journey that had brought her from a sick in Boston to this moment of profound fulfillment. The doctor had been right about one thing: she couldn't bear children, but he had been wrong about what that meant for her life. Her inability had not been a limitation, but an opening to a different kind of motherhood, one that had brought healing and purpose not just to her, but to 7 children who needed exactly what she and Ryan could provide. "I love you, Ryan Alderson," she whispered. "Thank you for filling this house with love." "The love was always there," he replied, drawing her close. "You just helped me find a way to share it." As they returned inside to their sleeping household, Rose knew with absolute certainty that while life might not always follow the expected path, sometimes the unexpected journey led to destinations far more beautiful than anything one could have planned. Their house, built on love, was proof of that, a testament to what could grow when 2 people chose to see possibility where others saw only limitation.